So if you're worried about spending too much money in retirement, here are the 3 numbers that you need to know. My name is Zach and I'm an hourly financial planner. And stick around to the end, I'll reveal what software I use when I work with my clients to figure this question out. So the first number, most important number, is your withdrawal rate. In the numerator is going to be how much you're spending from your assets every year. How much you're taking out of your 401ks, your IRAs, your Roth accounts, please don't do that, your brokerage accounts, and any other assets that you're spending. And then just divide that by your investment portfolio size. I don't really like to include the value of your home in the denominator because you're not really going to spend the equity in your home until the very end of your plan in most cases. This number that you compute is going to be your withdrawal rate percentage. Now, as you've been consuming personal finance content, you've probably heard about this thing called the 4% rule. If you're at or below 4%, then good for you. That's a good sign that you're on track. But if you're over 4%, don't get too stressed out. You're going to have some wiggle room before you start getting into the yellow zone. 4% is still the number that you can spend in really the worst periods of time that you could retire. Think like before the Great Depression, the stagflation of the 70s, things like that. So there's some wiggle room. A lot of people don't retire into horrible market environments, but it is a huge concern. So this chart is really helpful because it shows how much you could spend in different years that you retired. And it can vary a lot year by year. Once you start getting past 5, 6, 7%, then you start getting into the yellow and red territory. This is where we got to dig a little bit deeper. But here's what no one talks about. Almost everyone is over their safe withdrawal percentage early in retirement. You're going on trips, remodeling your house, buying a new house, buying a sports car, doing all sorts of fun things that you weren't able to have time for when you were working. And when you retire, a lot of people do this before a lot of their other income sources turn on. The second number you really need to get a handle on is your income sources in retirement, like Social Security, or when the mortgage is paid off on your rental property. Don't get too nervous if you're over 5%. It's totally normal. We can mitigate this pretty well. From what I see, even if you are over 5% early in retirement, by the time Social Security turns on, pensions turn on, rental income turns on, most people are going to be below that 4% anyway. So it's not a huge problem. And if you do find yourself above that 5% limit, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Now, if you're projected to be consistently over 4 or 5%, even after all those income sources turn on, then it is something that needs to be addressed. But for most of the people I work with, I don't really see this as a big issue. Third is going to be the number of rungs in your bond ladder. It's kind of like your ladder to safety. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to buy a bond out every year, sometimes multiple bonds per year, and we're going to bridge the gap between when you retire and when other income sources turn on. This is going to serve to decrease risk in the portfolio overall and provide safe assets that we can spend if we run into an environment where a market declines precipitously. The market goes down, you can spend these assets. Then in years that the market goes up, we can rebalance the portfolio, sell some stocks, buy another rung out on the ladder, and you got an additional year of safety. And the size of your ladder really depends on how risk averse you are. The more conservative investor you are, the longer the ladder is you're going to be. It's also going to be dependent on what are your experiences with the market up to this point. If you were watching markets really closely during the great financial crisis of 2008 or the tech crash of 2001, then you probably want a longer ladder than someone who hasn't lived through that because you got some scar tissue from that experience. But here's a look at the longest bear markets and their subsequent recovery periods on the screen now. Usually we try and target one of these numbers for a number of years to be safe and conservative in our bond ladder. Well, those are 3 numbers that you really need to know if you're going to have any hope of retiring. As promised, here's a video about the software that I use to work with clients to help figure this out. It's called Income Lab. Check out the video I made about it here. Hey, like and subscribe for more retirement planning content.